Countless years ago, in fact a few generations past, in the deep, dark, explosively noisy downtown of a massive city, on a street corner dominated by what was then the tallest skyscraper in town, in the granite and marble foundation of the cornerstone of that building, there was a little alcove. And every day, every single day, day in and day out, standing in that alcove on that street corner, there was a man. He was a nondescript man. His age was indeterminate. His hair was both wild and matted, disheveled. His whiskers and beard unkempt. His fingernails raw and ragged. His clothing tattered and stained with destitution. His face was gaunt to the point of emaciation. His features and expression were hangdog, woebegone. His eyes were sunken and forlorn. And yet within those eyes, within their quivering, manic intensity, an intensity that somehow balanced between utter despair and encroaching madness, there was a tiny spark of hope. Tenuous, flickering, like a candle flame, capable of being snuffed out at any given moment. A glint, a gleam of hope, fighting to stay alive, to remain unextinguished. Who was this man? I can tell you plainly enough. He was nobody. He was a nameless, faceless nobody. Just a raggedy man. Just a scarecrow. And every day he would stand on that street corner doing the same exact thing. He would stand out there on the sidewalk, brandishing a pair of paper dolls. Paper dolls that he had crafted out of old newspaper. He had a whole stack of them in a crumpled brown paper bag on the sidewalk at his feet. And every day he would stand there. And as the teams of pedestrians came parading past by the thousands, in this raw, whisperish, scratched, reedy voice, he would cry out to them, "Want a penny, two a penny? Want a penny, two a penny? Want a penny, two a penny?" For hours and hours on end. I must iterate to you that this was a time which predates social work as you know it to be today. The avenues and resources which exist here and now, they did not exist then. No, this was a time of soup kitchens and rescue missions, folding cots in the basement of the Salvation Army, if you were lucky. It was a time of winos and bag ladies, of hobos and bums. It was a time wherein if you were homeless, if you were down and out, if you found yourself living on the streets, it meant that you were going to die. And you knew it. And you lived with the reality of your situation every day. It likewise meant that you would resort to whatever means that you could in order to survive another day, in whatever form these means might take. Now, as pitiable, as in certain lights pathetic and possibly even laughable as they may seem, this was the form of survival which took shape for that lone, mousy, raggedy man standing there on that street corner, day after day, calling out to unheeding, unseeing passers-by. 1 a penny, 2 a penny, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, 1 a penny, 2 a penny. And of course, no one paid him any attention. No one looked at him. And certainly no one ever bought any of his paper dolls, including myself. May the Mills brothers forgive me, but I had no need to buy a paper doll to call my own or otherwise. But you see, it wasn't for want of interest. It wasn't because no one was impressed with what he had to offer. It was because he was invisible. He didn't even exist. He didn't even cast a shadow. He was as nameless and faceless as the paper dolls he was trying to sell. And yet he persisted every day. 1 a penny, 2 a penny, 1 a penny, 2 a penny. It was as if he was saying to the crowd, here I am, I don't mean to bother you, I don't want to impose, but you see, I'm in desperate trouble, and I need help. I have no money, but here, I've made these. I have these to offer to you. Won't you see, I made them with my own hands. Would you perhaps be interested in buying one? Or two? 1 a penny, 2 a penny? Won't you stop and see my wares? See what I've made for you. One day, I happened to be passing by that street corner, and I noticed that he was gone. The stained granite and marble of that alcove was empty. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I would never, ever see him standing on that street corner again, waving those paper dolls. That is not to say that I never saw him again at all. On the contrary, I did see that man one more time. Ironically, from that street corner. This time, instead of standing there, instead of standing still, he was crossing the street. He was in motion. He was crossing from the opposite direction, passing the street corner, and continuing right on by. And in addition to this, there were several other distinctions, several other differences in his appearance that last time that I saw him. I've attempted to recreate how he appeared that day. Now, as ridiculous, as hopelessly mismatched as this ensemble might seem, this is more or less how he appeared that final day that I saw him. And would you believe he was carrying one of these, straight out of the Great Depression. One of the other salient distinctions about his appearance that day is that he seemed to have put on a few pounds, to have filled out a little bit. But the most distinctive difference that day was, as I say, he was in motion. He was crossing the street. Now, he wasn't scrambling amongst the pedestrians, trying not to get trod under their feet in order to get from one street corner to the next. No. His posture was upright. And he was walking with purpose, brisk, measured paces as he crossed the street and walked right past that street corner, past the alcove, past the entire building. The difference rests in the fact that he was going somewhere because he had somewhere to go, somewhere to be, someplace where he was expected. He had someplace to go. And in the sense of a success story, he was going places. Now, from a frivolous, fanciful perspective, this metamorphosis could be ascribed to some rags to riches tale. There he was on the street corner, selling his wares. Along came some impresario, some entrepreneur, who saw what he had made and said, "How avant-garde, how chic, how underground. Come with me, I'll make you $1 million. The nouveau riche and the modern art crowd, they will love what you have done." Took him under his wing, and the rest is history. And this was a mere step on the rungs of the ladder of success. More likely what happened is, probably by virtue of a rescue mission, he was given a good meal, a place to stay, and whatever meager resources were available to him, he availed himself of them. He was allowed to choose some rummage sale cast-off from their basement wardrobe, enough to make himself presentable for a job interview. And in fact, that probably is where he was going, on his way to distribute pamphlets door to door, or to put brochures under windshield wipers in a parking lot to announce the opening of a new supermarket. Or perhaps he was on his way to his job as the new night janitor at the bowling alley, and his coveralls and sack lunch were in this suitcase. And at the end of his shift, of course, he would return to either a boarding house or, more likely, a small room in some death-trap flea-bag hotel overlooking some Tom Waits cityscape, having worked his way up from halfway houses and flop houses. But you see, again, it's a sliding scale question of success. And when you look at it in that light, suddenly this becomes a Wall Street suit and tie. This becomes a briefcase. And that cramped room becomes a penthouse. And that job, that existence, becomes a purpose, a means to survive, a means to live, and a means to prevail over one's circumstances. And in that sense, it was an incredible, amazing success story to have witnessed that afternoon, all those years ago. And it is for that reason that I never forgot about that lone raggedy man and his paper dolls. And it is for that reason that I never cease to be inspired by the remembrance.